Howdy! I'm here to teach you guys how to graph inequalities. Alright, so when you're graphing inequalities, it is very important that you guys look at your equation. Here we're given y is less than 2x plus 3. The first step that you want to do is to graph the regular equation you're given, that 2x plus 3. So what you're going to do, because this is written in mx plus b form, you are already given the slope and the y-intercept. So this is going to make it so much easier to graph. The slope here is the one in front of the x, so it is a 2, and your y-intercept is a positive 3. All right, so when we begin graphing, you always begin at the y-intercept. So here we're going to start our graph at a positive 3. All right, and to move to the next point, you will use your slope. Because it's a positive 2, that means that you're going to move up 2 to get to the next point. I'm not given a number at the bottom, so I assume that you're going to move at least once to the right. And we always move to the right to get to the next point. So once you move up 2 to the right one, you can put another dot there. You want to move to the next point, you go up 2 more and to the right one. All right, and you would continue this until you want. All right, if you want to go the opposite way, instead of moving up and to the right, you would move the opposite direction. So you would move down 2, and what would be the opposite of going to the right? It would be once to the left. So if you're moving, you always assume that you're moving to the right, unless you're going backwards. Then you will move to the left. All right, let me do one more point so we can make a really good line. All right, and how we connect our lines really depends upon what sign we were given. So at the beginning, I told you we have a less than sign. So when you're given any less than signs or any greater than signs, you assume that this has a dashed line or a dotted line. Right? If this was less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, then you would assume that it's a solid line that connects these dots. So here we're going to do a line that is dashed. All right, so instead of being a solid line like this, you're going to make it dashed. All right, so I'm going to dash it instead of having one solid line. All right, so we're almost done. Because this is an inequality, it really matters which way you're going to shade your line. So it doesn't just include things in your line. Here, this line is where it's equal to. Because we have a dashed line, it means that none of your points that are part of your answer can be on that line. So it really matters where your answers would be. So if you have a less than sign or a less than or equal to sign, you're going to shade below your line. Anything under your line. All right. If you have greater than or equal to, you would shade above. You would shade above the line, whatever is greater. All right. So here we were given less than. So that means that you got to be under your line. So one way that you can check is that you pick one of the points on your line. Let's say we're taking this one. And you're going to draw a line going under, an arrow going down. That means that we're shading going downwards down here. That is not always going to be the what's going to happen. So for example, if you had a positive or a negative slope, under the line would be to the left of it. So be very careful when you're shading. Make sure you draw yourself an arrow. If you were shading above, you can draw an arrow going above, and that would be where your shading would go. So here it would be under. All right, and that would be your answer. All right, but on your assignments that you're given today, they're going to ask you for a certain point if it's part of your solution. So when they're asking for that, they're asking you to check test points. So a test point is just for you to check if a given point, so that means in x comma y form, is part of your answer, part of your solution. All right. Because we already have it graphed, I can already tell you where my answers are going to be. So your answers are going to be down here, anywhere in the shaded area of your graph. They cannot be on the line because this is a dashed line. So you can also check that way. But there is a different method that you guys can check to see if one of the test points is part of your answers. So let's give you guys the same example, but now let me ask you if a certain point is part of your answer. All right, so let me erase all these notes. All right, and I'm gonna ask you here, is 0, 0 part of my answer? If you see right here on your graph, you can already see that it's definitely a yes. It is gonna be part of my answer. But let's check it with using math. So here you're given an x and a y. You're given 0 for the x, 0 for the y. So on your equation, where y is less than 2x plus 3, anytime I see a y, I'm going to replace it with 0. Anytime I see an x, I'm going to replace it with 0 as well. So here, instead of putting a y, I'm going to put in 0. 0 is going to be less than 2 times, instead of being an x, I replace it with 0 plus 3. All right, and we're going to check if all of this is going to give me something that is less than 0. All right, so but first, let's do 2 times 0. 2 times 0 is 0. We're going to bring down that 3. We're going to check again. Is 0 less than 0 plus 3 is 3. So is 0 less than 3? Yes. So that means that it's part of our answer. That is 2 different ways that you guys can check if a test point is part of your answer. Let me give you guys another example with this one. Let me give you something that is not part of the solution. All right, let's do something that's above. Let's do -4, 1. You can already see from my graph that -4, 1 is a no here. All right, but let's check it mathematically. So anytime you see an x, I'm going to replace it with -4. Anytime I see a y, I'm going to replace it with 1. So let me write down my equation again. We got y is less than 2x plus 3. Where I see the y, I'm going to replace it instead of 0 this time. I'm going to replace it with 1. And we're checking to see if 2 times -4 plus 3 is going to give me something that is less than 1. All right, so what is 2 times -4? -8. And we're going to bring down the plus 3. -8 plus 3, you're going to subtract them because they're opposite signs. You're going to get 5. And because the -8 was bigger, it's going to be a -5. So here it says 1 is less than -5. Is that true? No. So that means that it's not part of my solution. So that's all we're doing here on your assignments and on the video questions. All right, let me give you guys one more example. Let's work it out backwards. Let's do the algebra way first, then check the graph. All right, so I'm asking here, is 6, 2 part of the solution of this equation, this inequality here? So I'm checking to see if 6, 2 is part of my solution. All right, let's do the math way first. Let's do the algebra way. I'm going to check if 6, 2 is part of my answer. So you're given the equation y is greater than or equal to 1/3 x minus 4. So where I see a y, I'm going to replace it with 2. Where I see an x, I'm going to replace it with 6. So here I'm going to write 2 is greater than or equal to 1/3. And instead of an x, I'm going to put in a 6 and minus 4. We're checking if 2 is greater than all of this right here. All right. So let's take it one step at a time. What is 1/3 of 6? Or what is 6 divided by 3? It would be 2. 1/3 of 6 would be 2. And for that 2, we're going to take away 4. So what is going to happen between the 2 and the negative 4? 1 is positive, 1 is negative. So you're going to subtract them and get 2. Because the 4 is bigger, it will be a negative 2. All right, so here it says 2 is greater than negative 2. So is that true? Yes. So when I graph it, this should be part of my solution. So now let's try to graph it. We said we have y is greater than or equal to 1/3 x minus 4. Remember, this is my beginning point here. That negative 4 is where I begin my graph. My slope is 1/3. It's a positive 1/3. So that means that you're going up 1. And this time, because I have a number under, I don't just assume that it goes to the right one. I assume it goes to the right 3. So you're going up 1 and to the right 3. Up 1 and to the right 3. If you want to go the opposite way, you would go down 1 and to the left 3. Down 1 to the left 3. All right, because this is a greater than or equal to sign, should be a solid line because it's equal to. And because it's greater than, it should be shaded above. So pick a point, draw an arrow going up, and that's where your shading should be. So let me draw the line first. Here's my line, and we're shading on top of that line. So it should be up here. So that means that this point is part of my solution. So we got it right. All right, so that is all you have to do for this.